you guys are on.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another talk show. And this time it is going to be very interesting because we are going to be talking to the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey. Last month, we had the representative from the same organization in Spanish, and this time we are very fortunate to have Kate O'Connor and Susan Quick to be on our platform with us and sharing the information. So, welcome, Kate, and welcome, Susan. And it's our honor to have both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just start with um, tell us something, Kate, about the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey and your role in the organization.
Sure, thank you. So, the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey is a statewide organization that's dedicated to supporting and advocating for people who are affected by brain injury and raising public awareness through education and prevention. And our roles as public education coordinators is to educate about the causes and consequences of brain injury and to provide tips on how to prevent brain injury. And that's why we're here today.
Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice because it's extremely important to know the information and to avoid such traumatic experience that anyone can have. Um, Susan, why is the discussion of brain injury so important?
Well, we call brain injury the silent epidemic because in the United States, every 21 seconds, someone sustains a traumatic brain injury. And yet, most people are not aware of what a serious health concern this is. When we're in a room full of people and we ask someone to raise their hand if they know someone who's had a brain injury, usually we get one or two people's hands raised. But if we ask that same group of people to raise their hands if they know someone who's had a concussion or a stroke or a brain tumor, almost all of the hands will go up. And that's because people just don't understand that all of these conditions are brain injuries. A stroke or a brain tumor are examples of acquired brain injuries, and these are injuries that happen after birth. A concussion is an example of a traumatic brain injury or a TBI, and this is caused by an external force, like hitting your head. And today we're going to be talking about traumatic brain injuries.
That is true. It is traumatic. And as before this conversation, I was talking about my daughter. She is falling down from the bicycle. It was the experience that I felt that, that needs attention. So, Susan, what are some causes of the traumatic brain injury?
Well, traumatic brain injuries can happen for lots of different reasons, like, with your daughter, like falling, either on a playground or maybe down some stairs. Or it could be a concussion from a sports-related injury, or could occur from a violent incident like domestic abuse, or it can be because of traffic-related injuries. Now, today we're going to focus on traffic-related traumatic brain injuries.
Oh, wow. So, Kate, how can someone hurt their brain in a traffic related crash?
Yeah, so a traffic-related crash can happen from a lot of different ways. Whether it's a car and car collision, to a pedestrian getting hit while crossing the street. And you shared about your daughter. My brother was actually hit by a car, and Susan's son was hit by a car as well. So a lot of people in the state of New Jersey have these personal stories. And then we also have to think of, our teen drivers and then other vulnerable users such as people riding bikes and motorcycles. And then we have passengers to think about who are, riding in either cars or school buses, who may or may not be in car seats and may or may not be wearing their seatbelts as well. These are all ways that they could hurt their brain in a traffic crash.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's very true. So you mentioned about the pedestrian crashes. So how can you teach your children to be safe walkers?
That's a big question, right?
Yeah. Oh my
So,
God.
as parents, it's our responsibility to, to guide our children to become responsible pedestrians and bike riders and drivers. And we are our role models for our children. They are watching every single thing that we do from the time they're little until they're older. So that's why it's so important to practice safe walking habits with our children early in life. So take walks with your children and use this time to really reinforce these safety habits. And some easy tips for safe walking are to be predictable, right? So cross at corners and crosswalks and make eye contact with drivers whenever you're crossing. So teach your children to, wave at the car when they're crossing the street because a lot of times drivers aren't necessarily paying attention either. And also walk facing traffic if there's no sidewalks. A lot of times we see people on the wrong side of the road. And then be alert when walking, especially when crossing in the street. You want to keep your head up, right? And put that phone down for those few minutes when you're crossing in the street and model this behavior as a parent. So we know, right? The children are watching. If you're on your phone crossing the street, they will be too. Next, we want to, watch for cars pulling out of driveways, pulling into driveways, backing up out of parking lots. And, when you're taking these walks with your children, you can practice this. So you could say, stop, we're at a driveway. What are we supposed to do? Look for the car, practice and keep reinforcing this. And then we want to make sure that we're being visible at all times of day. So wearing bright clothing during the day so drivers can see us, wearing reflective clothing at night, and you can carry a flashlight or a blinking light. And one thing I like to do is if I don't have anything on me, I'll use my phone flashlight in the
Hmm.
crosswalk. And all of this is really important because in New Jersey, we have 30% of all of our traffic deaths are pedestrians. So a lot of other states, we have more people dying from car crashes in general, just passengers and drivers. But here in our state, it's the pedestrians that are dying. So as a driver, we have to make sure that we are watching our speed, especially, in residential neighborhoods and in school zones.
Oh, wow. No, you have really mentioned very good points because generally we think that these are very common sense things, but I don't think so that common sense is that common because I've seen dark clothing, people wearing dark clothing in the night, no reflective clothing. How, like, how will you be able to notice them? So
Exactly.
if they follow these guidelines, I feel this is so great.
And a lot of people get hit at night. So year after year, we see most pedestrians get hit at night, right? And it makes sense because you can't see them. So you're
Yeah,
virtually invisible when you're wearing dark clothing. So you have to try extra hard to make yourself be seen.
You know,
correct. I agree.
and I think almost everyone on this meeting can say that they almost had a close call where we almost had either a pedestrian or a cyclist. I know it's happened to me multiple times because they just you come upon them and you just can't see them.
Yeah, true. I agree. So now we have spoken about the pedestrians. So what about the bicyclists? What are some safety tips for keeping cyclists safe?
Yeah, great question. And you might not know this, Yika, but in New Jersey, bicyclists are actually considered non-motorized vehicles. So they have to follow all the same rules that cars do. So that means riding in the same direction as traffic, right? On the right side of the road. They have to stop at all traffic signals, follow all traffic signals. That means stopping at stop signs, stopping at red lights, using hand signals, right, to signal right, left, or that they're stopping, just like a car has blinkers. So, you know, conveying this to our children, right? If we're riding bikes with our kids, say, well, stop at the stop sign, stop at the red light, and stay to the right. And then, just like walkers, all the tips I just mentioned, bicyclists need to be visible at night and not distracted by music or a cell phone. Everyone has their AirPods in their ears nowadays. And I think the most important thing when riding a bike for us and our agency is to wear a helmet.
Kate, just how effective are helmets?
I think most people don't really realize this, but if your helmet is worn properly, it can reduce brain injuries up to 90%. And that's the key word is properly. So, and in New Jersey, anyone 17 years of age or younger, it's the law to wear a helmet, right? So that's any kid in high school, that age and younger, on a bike, a scooter, skateboard, or wearing, any kind of roller skates. So get in the habit of, even if you're with your kid and they're riding their bike or scooter in the driveway, put that helmet on. And then as a parent, make sure you're wearing that helmet too, to model that safe behavior.
And that's true. Kate and I, when we go out and we talk to kids and we say anybody 17 and younger, it's the law. But we always say, I'm over 17, but I want to protect my brain. So we wear our helmets when we're out cycling. We only have one brain, and we want to make sure it's in good working order for our whole lifetime.
Correct. I agree. And as you're talking about the helmet, about my daughter wearing the helmet, that's one thing actually saved her from getting any serious injury. Otherwise, It would have been because we were downhill and she fell. So it would have been a disaster. So I would say helmet really saved her. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, Susan, so now we are coming to the holiday season. So, what are some tips for buying a helmet or a bike?
So that's a great question. As we go out, this is the time of year when we want to purchase gifts for our kids. We might be getting them a bike. It's important that if you do a bike or a scooter that you buy for your children, that you also make sure you purchase a helmet to go along with that, and other protective gear like wrist guards and knee pads. But it's important to look at the label to make sure it's a CPSC approved helmet. You can buy a good, safe helmet at lots of big box stores, and they don't have to cost a lot to be safe, but it just needs to fit the right way. And so you can do this by either bringing your child to the store with you and having them fit the helmet, try on helmets to fit, or you could take a tape measure and measure around the circumference of their head and then use a sizing guide to get the right helmet size. But just, some helmets also have knobs at the back of the helmet that you can adjust. You can either tighten it to make the helmet fit more snugly, or you can loosen it to make it fit better as your child's head is growing. And, remember, just like with our shoes and our clothing, our children are outgrowing our helmets too, because their heads are still growing. So it's important that about every year or so, you make sure you purchase a new helmet for their child while their heads are still growing.
Oh, wow. Yes, that is there, Yes, Kate.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to add a good way to measure their head too. If you don't have a tape measure, flexible tape measure, you could use like an iPhone cord, measure that, and then you lay the iPhone cord down and then measure that with a hard tape measure to get the exact size, like however long the iPhone cord was, lay it down and then adjust it that way to get the correct size.
Wow, that's a good tip. That's a very good tip. So what about if we are in the car? How can we keep our children safe while riding the car?
Well, from the very first moment that we bring our children home from the hospital, we want to make sure that they're secured in properly installed car seats. But, unfortunately, 4 out of every 5 car seats are installed incorrectly. You can go to your local police department or your local Safe Kids Coalition chapter, and they can direct you to a nearby car seat inspection site where a registered technician can help make sure that your car seat is installed properly. And also, if you're purchasing a car seat, you want to make sure that it meets federal crash safety standards. You also want to be careful when you're purchasing a car seat online, because recently a lot of people have been selling counterfeit car seats. And these look just like a regular car seat, but when people get them, they're delivered, they're unsafe and they're just not safe to use. So be really careful if you're doing online shopping. And you also want to make sure that you check the expiration date for your car seat. And these dates can be found on the label on the side of your car seat. And then as your kids get older, you're going to transition them from car seats to booster seats and finally to adult seat belts. And did you know that teens have the lowest rate of seatbelt use amongst all age groups? That's why it's really important to talk to your teen to make sure that they buckle up every time they get in a car, whether they're a driver or a passenger. And then you also want to talk to them about the consequences of what could happen if they don't wear their seatbelts.
Oh, wow. And as you're saying, Susan, I know many of my friends' kids who are teenagers, they don't even care about wearing a seatbelt.
You
Right?
know, it's so true, Seeker. We go to driver ed classes across the state, and we talk to kids about the importance of wearing their seatbelts. And the one thing that most kids don't realize is a lot of kids will tell us they'll wear their seatbelt if they're driving, but they don't have their passengers wear them. And one of the things we call this the backseat bullets. And that's because, it's physics. And if you're trying to figure out the force of how hard someone's going to hit you, it's speed times weight. So if you have a 200-pound passenger and you're going at 30 miles an hour, that person, if they're unbuckled, they're going to come in through the car and they can hit you with the force of 6,000 pounds. That's like an elephant hitting you. Most kids don't realize this. And this is something we try to get across to the new drivers, is the physics of seatbelts and how important it really is to keep you secured in the car.
Wow.
And it's amazing when we talk to teens and I say, well, why don't you wear it in the back seat? Well, I have the front seats to protect me.
Right.
So, well, when a crash happens, are you just going to hold on to the front seat? I thought, I never really thought about that. So it's really it's about having those conversations to get past the initial thought, and then it makes sense to them usually.
It really does. We find that when we go out and we just talk to the kids, we don't lecture them, we just give them information. And I can't tell you how many times teens are amazed that statistic I just shared with you about how much force an object can hit you with. And, that'll do a long way to making them want to make sure that they're buckled up in their car seat.
Oh my God. So now, when we are talking about the teens, so another question that is coming up is aside from our younger kids, how can we keep the teens safe, the drivers safe, as they are learning to drive?
Now, this is a question that everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
And in New Jersey, a teen crashes every 13 minutes. Now, new drivers are most vulnerable to being in a crash during the first 2 years of getting their license. And that's because they're inexperienced. So just like anything else, if we want to get good at it, we need to make sure that we give new drivers enough supervised practice time so that they can get better. And as parents, we also want to be good role models for our kids. Remember, Kate said they watch us all the time. So we want to make sure that we practice safe driving habits by watching our speed and not texting and driving. And you also should be aware of the GDL programs in our state. These laws are designed to protect new drivers and their passengers. And under the GDL program, there are limits put onto the number of passengers that a new driver can have in their car. And there's also some restrictions on nighttime driving. Now, the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey, we host a program called the You Got Brains Champion Schools program. And this is a statewide peer-to-peer program where we challenge groups of students from high schools across the state to create safe driving campaigns in their schools and their communities. And every school that participates gets a $1,000 stipend to implement their campaign. And then all schools are competing to win one of 3 grand prizes of $10,000 that is donated to their school by NJM Insurance Group. So, we would love to have your high schools, if you have a student at a high school, participate in our program. We'd love for you to join us. And if you'd like more information on either joining or more information on the program, we've put some links in the program show notes.
Oh, wow. That is some amazing program that will actually motivate them to participate at least.
Oh, it really does. This is our 12th year of doing this program, and it's been proven that the students who participate in our program show increase in their safe driving behaviors. It really has gone a long way. And if you could see the enthusiasm of the kids who work in this program, they come up with such creative ideas. They create PSAs, they do art sculptures, they do all different kinds of ways to get messages across to their friends about safe driving.
Oh, nice. This is something that I definitely would love to read more about.
Yeah, it's a great program.
We have a few questions from our viewers right now. So I'm just reading those questions. So one of the question is that my friend died in a motorcycle accident and he was wearing a helmet, but the police said that the helmet was old and not in a good condition. Is that true?
Yeah, that's, just like we talked about with bicycle helmets. It's really important for motorcycle riders to wear DOT approved helmets. You can go down the road and you can see lots of different helmets that motorcycle riders ride. But the only safe one is a DOT approved. And just like with the bicycle, the same thing is true in a motorcycle crash. If you're involved in a crash with a motorcycle, you need to get rid of that helmet and get a new one. Helmets are only designed to take the force of a crash one time. We always say if you crash, your helmet's trash. So it's really important that you have a new helmet. Just like a motorcycle, you want to have a new helmet that fits snugly and will protect your head.
Oh, okay.
That's a great question. Thank you.
Yes. Another question I have is, can I have a concussion with a helmet on?
Yes. I mean, helmets are designed to protect you, but they can't protect from anything. They might, make the injury not as severe, but, it still won't completely reduce, a concussion or a brain injury from happening. Right, Sue?
Right. It's designed to reduce your severe injuries. And just like you were saying, if you saw with your daughter, if she didn't have her helmet on, what the difference could be. So you still might get a concussion or a minor brain injury, but it will go a long way to making sure you don't get a more serious brain injury, which in turn have more serious consequences and long-term effects.
Like a permanent damage.
Yeah. It's really important. If you do nothing else, the one thing you can do to help protect your children, when they have wheels on their feet, you want a helmet on their head. It's the one safety thing you can do. And we have to say this, it's got to be a properly worn helmet and have it buckled. Yep. Otherwise, it's going to fly off in the crash and it won't do you any good.
When I was younger, I was riding on a sidewalk and I hit a bump in the sidewalk with my helmet. I flipped over my handlebars hit my head. My helmet hit the sidewalk so hard that it actually cracked. Not in half, but cracked. And I'm thinking back, I had a really bad concussion from that. And my mom always said, could you imagine what would have happened if you weren't wearing that helmet?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
for that helmet to crack. So, yes, you can get a concussion while wearing a helmet, but the injury will be way less severe.
correct. Wow. So another question is, can the airbags help the safety of children on the back seat?
Well, airbags are designed in the front seat to be used only by adults. And airbags can't replace seatbelts. So they're meant to work in conjunction with your seatbelt. But you should never have your child in the front seat, because the front seat, the airbag comes with such force that it's not safe for your child. Cars are designed for the back seats to be the safest place for children. But yes, if your child is sitting in either their seatbelt or their booster seat, they're properly secured. When the side, like sometimes you have side impact airbags, that will help protect them. It'll be another layer of protection, but it is designed to be used with properly installed car seats or seat belts.
Okay, no, that is so true because airbag safety, I've heard that you can get some injury with the airbag too. Is that true?
Yeah, that's why in the front seat, you shouldn't have your children sit in the front seat until they're at least 13 years old. Anybody other than 13 should be sitting at the back in the back seat. If you have if you have to have them sit in the front seat, you want to make sure that you move the car seat way to the farthest back position so that the air seat doesn't come and slam right into the child. But
Okay,
back seat is the safest for kids. That's what we say. Stay
yeah,
in the
true.
back till you're 13.
Yeah. So we had such a fruitful discussion. So, how can we learn more about the topics that we talked about today?
Yeah, we offer free, virtual and in-person presentations on all the topics that we talked about today. And also we have a lot of other presentations we didn't get to talk about. So we do presentations on sports concussion, sports injuries. We work with older adults and fall prevention and pedestrian safety. We do domestic violence and brain injury and a lot of other topics as well. And again, these are all free. We work with all ages from birth to seniors, and you can request a workshop on our website, or you can email us. And then we also have a lot of information on our website, jerseydrives.com. So jerseydrives.com, like New Jersey. And from there, there's all different tabs for educators, for parents, pedestrian safety, bicyclist safety, drivers. It's really like a resource center for you. And some of the things that we talked about today, how to fit a helmet, how to find a car seat technician, you can find on our website there.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Susan. It was my pleasure to talk to you because this is an extremely important topic which we do not talk about.
Right.
We try to avoid these topics because if it doesn't happen to me, it doesn't exist. But that's not the case because somebody or the other will be getting affected with this. So thank
Right.
you for sharing all your information with us and looking forward to having more such conversations with both of you.
Thank you so much for having us. It was our pleasure.
Yes, thank you. And anyone who's watching today, take what you learned and tell one person. That's how we, spread awareness and hopefully reduce the numbers of traffic crashes in our state. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.